For over 400 years, Rome ruled almost the entire known world. Its roads connected 3 continents. Its legions were considered unbeatable by every neighboring power. Its cities had running water, public libraries, heated public baths, and even central heating in wealthier homes. Then, within a single century, all of that simply fell apart. So what actually killed the most powerful empire in human history? The truth is, no single thing did. Rome didn't die from one wound. It bled out slowly, from dozens of cuts that all landed at almost exactly the same time. Let's start with the money, because that's where the cracks first began to show. By the 3rd century, Roman emperors were debasing their own currency just to pay soldiers and bureaucrats. They mixed silver coins with cheaper metal again and again until the coins were barely worth anything at all. Prices spiraled out of control. Trade slowed dramatically across the entire empire. The economic engine that had funded roads, aqueducts, and armies for centuries began grinding to a halt. Then there was the empire's sheer size. At its peak, Rome stretched from Britain to the Middle East, a territory too vast for any single ruler to control effectively. Historian Edward Gibbon, writing in the 18th century, argued that this overextension was the empire's fatal flaw. Communication between Rome and its distant provinces could take weeks to arrive. By the time orders reached their destination, the crisis they addressed had often already changed completely. To solve this, the empire eventually split in 2. A western half centered on Rome, and an eastern half centered on Constantinople. The eastern half, with stronger economies and better defenses, would go on to survive for another 1,000 years as the Byzantine Empire. The western half was not nearly so lucky. Then came the pressure from outside. Throughout the 4th and 5th centuries, waves of Germanic groups, including the Visigoths, Vandals, and Ostrogoths, pushed into Roman territory. Some came as invaders. Many came as desperate refugees, fleeing an even more frightening threat from further east. The Huns, a nomadic confederation under leaders like Attila, whose westward expansion displaced entire populations and sent them crashing directly into Rome's vulnerable borders. Rome had absorbed outside groups peacefully before, throughout its long history. But this time, the scale was unprecedented, and the empire's ability to integrate or repel them had already been severely weakened by decades of internal chaos and infighting. And the internal chaos was staggering. During the 3rd century alone, Rome cycled through dozens of emperors, many of them assassinated by their own soldiers within months of taking power. This period, historians call the crisis of the 3rd century, saw the empire fracture into competing factions, each backed by its own private army, each one more loyal to its general than to Rome itself as a whole. This mattered enormously, because it meant the legions, once the proud backbone of Roman power, became politically unreliable almost overnight. Soldiers who could murder an emperor for a simple pay raise weren't soldiers you could fully trust to defend a crumbling, overstretched frontier. Then add disease into that already volatile mix. The plague of Cyprian, which struck in the mid-3rd century, may have killed millions of people, according to estimates from historians studying Roman demographic collapse. A shrinking population meant fewer farmers, fewer taxpayers, and fewer available recruits for an army that desperately needed both at once. Climate played a measurable role here, too. Research published by historian Kyle Harper points to evidence of a cooling and drying trend across the late Roman period, disrupting agriculture at the exact moment the empire could least afford food shortages of any kind whatsoever. By 476 CE, the symbolic end finally arrived. A Germanic general named Odoacer deposed the last Western Roman emperor, a teenager named Romulus Augustulus, and didn't even bother replacing him with another Roman ruler at all. The Western Roman Empire, as a political entity, simply stopped existing entirely. But here's the twist that surprises most people. For the ordinary person living through this, the fall didn't feel like a sudden explosion. It felt like decades of slow decline, where Roman institutions hollowed out gradually, the value of money kept dropping, and Roman provinces slowly became their own independent kingdoms, often still using Roman language, Roman law, and Roman customs, just without a Roman emperor running things anymore at all. Rome did not fall in one single, dramatic moment of fire and collapse. It dissolved, weakened by economic collapse, military disloyalty, disease, climate stress, and constant outside pressure, until one ordinary day, there simply wasn't enough empire left to hold itself together any longer at all.